Hello, guys. Welcome back to the next episode of the After Hours Lounge. Really honoured to be joined today by Mr. Nick Hounsfield, and you guys will probably know him better as Wavemaker Nick. Nick, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, I'm pretty much the only person in my friendship group now that hasn't been to the Wave. But I have nothing but positive reviews so far. So I'm really excited. One of my friends, up till recently, he worked for Stance, and he came down and installed a load of the Stance stuff in the shop you've got down there. And he was said he could just hear it walking down, and he was frothing.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's quite mesmerizing, and it's massively distracting when you're down. Like it's our main headquarters, and trying to work in the place is so hard because you're just constantly looking out at perfect waves and people having a lot of fun. So yeah, I need to lock myself into a cupboard sometimes.
Yeah, I bet because that's one of the things I guess that you don't think about is actually the noise of the waves, like all the time, because it's not like the ocean where sometimes it goes flat. Like it just cranks them all day long. So it must be super hard, to kind of look at that place as a workspace as well as somewhere to go and have fun.
Exactly. Yeah. And in fact, it's more when the waves stop, you suddenly go, oh, it's suddenly quite quiet. And it's literally like suddenly when you've got a decent swell running, suddenly the waves completely stopping. It just doesn't happen. So you almost, it's almost like white noise that's constantly there. And then you actually, it's the silence is deafening for a minute.
Yeah.
And then it goes again.
Yeah, I'm sure you still manage to get out and get a few though, I guess, don't you? You must be able to.
Yeah, not so much recently, actually. It's been really busy.
Right.
And I've not, so what I normally do is jump in if there's a spare slot or something like that, then I'll book myself in on the day. But there's never spare slots. Which is a great thing, but it's not good for my surfing. No. and I definitely do start to notice, myself starts to get a little bit fractious when I haven't surfed for a while. Probably like a lot of people.
Yeah.
But because I've got quite used to going quite regularly, suddenly I'm like, I really need to get in the water again. I really need to. So yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely relative, isn't it? You definitely can get spoiled by it, and then suddenly, as soon as that's taken away, what was once a month was good before. Suddenly, you're like, nah, it's not okay anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So where did this? One thing I want to dive into before we kind of get onto the mental health and stuff. I mean, where did your kind of love of surfing sort of start? Really, I mean, give me a bit of backstory on how you got into the sport, and where this sort of dream of yours came from.
Well, I've been started to surf as a small kid, going down to the beaches of Cornwall for family holidays.
Right.
So it's about 5 years old, and just learning to surf on the beaches. I think it was mainly in what was the beach? I've completely forgotten the name. Portreath Harbour. And started to surf there. We'd always go there for summer holidays. And my dad bought one of the really original surfboards that came over from California at that time. It was a pop out, a board that wasn't sort of handcrafted but made out from molds, but it was really cool. Still got a picture of it. My dad started to sort of push me in some flat water, just getting me used to it, and then started to surf some small waves. And ever since then, I was completely hooked. I always loved. I mean, that it's properly it's my medium. It's my element that I'm completely most happy in. And I guess that's continued right the way through my life. It's the place that I go to, actually not necessarily waves or the ocean, but just water. I can, mad keen fisherman, always wanted to do something around maybe scuba diving. I wanted for a while to be a river keeper, looking after sort of rivers and lakes. I worked as a bailiff in in a carp fishery for many years. So I just always go back to water is my happy place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that, by the sounds of that as well, you know, river keepers and things like that, that sort of element of wanting to sort of look after that environment probably is something that you've always had as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, particularly when I was having to do, you know, the sort of bailiff job. Yeah, I was just having to, yeah, look after the whole space, not just the water and the fishermen. It was just, yeah, and I'd see just incredible stuff the whole time. You know, getting up really early in the morning, you know, opening up the place, and you know, all the wildlife there. Yeah, it's magical. It's something that I've just always loved, respected, and more as time's gone on, realised that it's something that has been damaged, and therefore really want to look at conserving it.
Yeah, yeah. And then obviously, you know, you've kind of moved on from that, and I guess now, you know, I see a lot of this stuff from the Wave. You know what you've made, and a lot of that is about bringing that kind of environment to people that wouldn't necessarily be able to have access to it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a bit weird because you know, my absolute original vision was that it would just be, you know, really a very relatively small lake compared to what we've got, that's just nestled very discreetly in a sort of countryside. The reality of how the technology's improved, the wave making technology has really advanced, has meant that there's like a lot more concrete involved. There is, you know, without a doubt, to make sure it's really robust and sustainable for the long term. Actually, we needed to put in some really solid foundations, which would allow us to you know, it's built to last at least 50 years. Whereas probably what I originally envisaged building would probably only last a few years. And I just, you know, it's just the naivety of the situation.
Yeah.
But as the whole project's grown, just everything's exponentially grown, but has grown towards something that can create amazing waves, way better than I ever thought it would be. But also a massive opportunity to really get a big volume of people come through our place, and then a great opportunity therefore to be able to have an impact on people understanding why it's important to conserve the environment, and look after it, and engage people who live in the city or in inland sort of communities to engage with it, because it is quite weird. You know, I still don't really appreciate that we're still in an island. We're so connected to Europe and everything, and it doesn't, I don't know whether it's geographical if we properly sat out in the middle of the Atlantic, but because we're so close to the continent, I just think we don't really appreciate, and we don't really have that connection to water than maybe people like, you know, from Hawaii or people like that do. And I think it's sad that we're not so connected to it, and it's something that I would love to be part of changing.
Definitely. I think it's one of those things as well that's changed over time. I mean, I know, you know, Britain was always like we're a seafaring people and all this stuff, but I guess as the world's changed, and I don't know, potentially like jobs, and, you know, there used to be a lot of cities that were basically built around kind of the fishing industry and stuff. I imagine that's probably changed, you know, as people have moved inland and jobs become digital and things like that. I guess people have been removed from having that, you know, having that sort of environment around them. I mean, I grew up in the Highlands of Scotland on the sea as well, so it's very much ingrained in my blood. My dad's a scuba diver who worked in the fishing industry for 20 years. You know, my uncle was the harbour master, so I'm exactly the same as you. You know, it feels like that. So it almost feels alien to me sometimes, thinking that there are people out there that don't think like that. You know, they see you walking down the road. You know, I live in Eastbourne on the south coast now, and they see us kind of rigging up to go windsurfing on the beach, and they walk past, oh, you're mad. And, you know, oh, why are you doing, you know, it's cold. And I think, I'm sure you've had it millions of times as well when you've been surfing on the coast and things. And there is that aspect of that whole seafaring thing has kind of gone for a lot
Yeah.
of communities, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that connection is so important because as we're learning more and more, the our health is so connected to the health of the oceans, on so many levels, and we need to get back to that connection and at least appreciate it more, so that then we start to look after it more and more, and hopefully really change habits which maybe have become quite bad over time.
Definitely. And I think, to me, and I guess this is probably why you guys thought of it as well, but one of the easiest ways of getting people into into the water and things like that is by providing them with something fun to do in it,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there is a real lack of access to that it's across the UK. We know that we don't provide brilliant sort of swim facilities, being able to immerse. We're very reliant on having to use swimming pools, and we know that a lot of leisure centres and stuff are either getting shut down, or they're really struggling, and they're not really getting the numbers that they should do. And I can't remember the figures, but it's pretty damning reports from the number of sort of secondary school kids who still can't swim, and that's just like a very, very basic need that should be supplied. So anything that allows us to be able to reconnect people to water, to be safe, is for me really essential.
Definitely. So what came first for you then? Because I know you do a lot of stuff with sort of Surfing England and stuff. I mean, were you already doing that when you were kind of thinking about building the wave and all this stuff? I mean, how did that all kind of come about? I mean, you don't need to give me sort of detailed history, but I know you've been putting up some videos recently on your Instagram of kind of the original wave pools you went to see and stuff. But I mean, was there a kind of light bulb moment, or were you thinking about it for a long time?
So the light bulb moment, really, I guess, I mean, it really stems back. I mean, I've worked as an osteopath for many, many years. I got really into healthcare and trying to understand how how you can affect people's health through sort of not having to take medication, not necessarily having to have surgery, but actually that you've got your innate ability in your body to be like, your body's got its own medicine chest. It actually just needs to come out as such, or be able to create a space whereby a healing environment can happen. And some of that is just through me being able to give people prescribe some advice, or give some stretches, or what have you. Sometimes it's an intervention that I may need to do, but massage or manipulation or whatever it might be. So I really got like transfixed by that, and was really loved it. But then I was getting really quite frustrated about the fact that I was only treating one patient at a time, normally sort of maybe at maximum, maybe seeing 15-20 patients a day, which is a lot. But I was going, there must be some real scale to this. And it was just after my dad died, and it really made me think about needing to create a much bigger change, a much bigger legacy. So I thought, right, well, how can I get loads of people outside, like into nature, like being fit and healthy and more productive, bringing out the best version of themselves. And I'm going, look, I love surfing, I love being outside. How could I wrap that all up in a destination that could really, really impact people's health and well-being? And then I literally, one night, the day that Wavegarden first released their technology, which is, that they make waves. I literally saw a YouTube clip and I saw it, and that was the eureka moment where suddenly my love for health and well-being could be coupled with my love for surfing.
Yeah.
And then I was going, and at the same time, that's going to get people outdoors, in water, and the opportunity to also get people understanding how important, the nature is, and being in water and getting that connection. It was so compelling for me that it was just, I had to do it. I absolutely had to do it. And I really realized that it was my kind of the North Star that I was just going to have to head towards no matter what. And that was it. That was, I think, in late 2010. And yeah, it's taken a bit of time.
Yeah.
But along the way, I was a bit frustrated really that at that time there wasn't much support from surfing, wasn't much support from Sport England, UK Sport. I was going, oh, wait a second, it's an amazing sport, but it's just not being given the gravitas that it needs to. So I started to engage with what used to be Surfing GB, is now Surfing England. And then since then, British surfing's come about, and have just been really at the heart of going, right, let's also, whilst I'm sorting out building the wave, why don't I try and really help as much as possible to try and put surfing on the mantelpiece properly, and making sure that it's, hopefully going to be a funded sport. And of course, over that 10 years, things have rapidly changed to now that it's an Olympic sport, hopefully very soon a Paralympic sport.
Yeah. I think that's probably, I imagine that's going to be a real catalyst for a lot of change, is the fact that it's been put into the Olympics. I guess that'll make a huge difference. Do you think initially potentially surfing were a bit apprehensive about kind of wave pools? And because I know there's still a stigma in the sport now, but this is before Kelly Slater showed his wave pool, and this is, I guess, when you were first thinking about it, when did Kelly, it must have been 2016, 2017?
I think it was 2015, I think.
Yeah.
I was just looking through yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, so that first kind of 5 years, before he did that, because I guess there was kind of rumblings. There was one or two wave pools at the time, wasn't there? But not compared to now, where every country's got a kind of state of the art facility almost now, don't they?
Yeah, or at least one's in development and is probably very viable. Whereas back then, it wasn't particularly viable at that time. And what Kelly's done is amazing, because he really has legitimized the sport, which is great. The sport within the wave pool community.
Yeah.
So he doesn't normally put his name to stuff that's rubbish. He doesn't need to, and I think it really put it right up there for something that people need to start considering it. And I know that, without a doubt, there are some people who still don't think it's a great thing, but I've not met many people who've actually come to our place. In fact, I don't actually know of. I'm sure people are out there, and I probably won't be the first person to hear about it, but I don't know many people who've been to our place and gone, that's rubbish. They might come and go, oh, I want bigger waves, or I'd like more waves, or I'd like it to be a little bit cheaper and a bit more accessible, or what have you. But I don't know many people who don't go, that is an incredible amount of fun. And
Yeah.
the bottom line is, if you don't like it, it's not like we've stopped ocean surfing and replaced it with what we're doing. It's just like it's just added to it, not taken anything away. And I still absolutely love surfing at the ocean. It just makes it, though, much more accessible, and the quality of the waves that come, and you can literally it's just dialed in, then it just takes a whole load of stress and cost out of those trips. But I love them both.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think you're right. I think there's a place in it for everything. I mean, you've got the whole kind of nature and almost that unexpectedness of going on a trip, down to the coast, and you're like, are we going to score and all this, and that's quite exciting to a certain aspect. But if you're wanting to just go and session, say like a certain move, you want to go work on your cutbacks or whatever it is, going to the wave for a couple of hours, that you're going to get I mean 25, 30 waves in a session. If you go down to the coast for a weekend, you might not even get those waves over the course of 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, at the moment, I mean, it's completely bonkers out there at the moment, because of course you can't go surfing in South Wales. So there's a whole load of Bristol, Bristol-based, London-based people who are just going, well, that's a whole coastline I'm not allowed to surf anymore.
Yeah.
And actually, we're still providing a really safe environment, which again is probably why we're absolutely ram-packed at the moment, because people are kind of getting the waves while they can. Plus, at the moment we've got these massive storms at the moment, and like you were saying, it's like it's windsurfing or trying to find a tiny little nook and cranny to go and surf in, and everybody will be at that spot. You can just guarantee it, because there's so little opportunities. So so it still serves its part really, really well in that respect.
Definitely. Is that kind of why you chose Bristol as the location, because it's got that proximity already to the kind of surfing spots while still being sort of close to London?
Yeah, I'd love to say that. It's actually because it's my backyard. That's where I live. I would absolutely hate to have to travel 2 hours to go surfing. No, but the reality is, the reason why I live in Bristol is because it allowed me back then to hold down a really good job, and allowed me to still have access to the coastlines within 1.5 to 2 hours. So.
Yeah.
So the very reason why I moved to Bristol is the very reason why Bristol's such a great place to be able to do it, because it is just the crossroads of north, south, and east and west. So so it's ideal, really. But I would say, I guess it is design rather than luck. But that's why. And I definitely, it's great that my local surf spot is 20 minutes from me, which is brilliant.
And it breaks all the time perfectly. Yeah. So, I mean, another, one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on the podcast as well was, I know, following the wave on Instagram and yourself and stuff, you guys post quite a lot about kind of surfing in relation to kind of mental health and the benefits it brings and things. And I wanted to kind of chat to you a bit about that and kind of see what your kind of thoughts were, with that. I mean, we briefly discussed it already, that kind of being in the sea is your kind of happy place. And for me, it is as well. And I find, like this morning, for example, we got up and went surfing. And after I'd been surfing, you feel you've kind of got an itch that's been scratched. And for the rest of that day, it doesn't necessarily matter what happens. You're kind of like, you've kind of got to a certain level within your head of like, I'm considerably more chilled out person. I imagine that's probably the same for you. I mean, was that the kind of basis of this whole movement of kind of blue health?
I guess it's just like yourself. It's just an instinct that I just needed to follow. I mean, I was a healthcare practitioner before. So I really understood the value of cardiovascular exercise and being able to move your joints and move your muscles and, all the rest of it. But then there's the other side. So I get a little bit of that when I go for a run, or I play a lot of hockey, and I quite like that from team sports, and it's good. But it's different when I get in the water. There's another angle to it, and I was really curious to try and understand what is that other angle? Why being in water or near the water, and ideally in the water actually exercising, why is that the absolute sort of almost like the holy grail of making me make sure I'm really good, or as good as I possibly can? So, I think somebody who's been on your show before, Easky Britton, who's a dear friend of mine, and we've talked about this many times, because we both share the same enthusiasm about trying to understand, really bolt down, what is it? What's the interaction that we have in our heads, in our minds about water and the effect it can have on your physical and mental well-being. But fundamentally, I just knew it was a really, really great thing for me, and it's something that I wanted to share. And my wife, who ironically can't stand surfing, she understands how it's great and all the rest of it, but I doubt we'll ever get her in a wetsuit surfing. But she completely gets it, and she loves coming down to the wave. She's been swimming a few times there, but also just being around it and the energy of the water and the clarity of the water and the blueness of the water and the sound of the water. She absolutely gets it. And she said, like, it's just such a beautiful place. It's like, well, what's beautiful about it? It's like, oh, it's just, I don't know. It's something that I love. And I think what we're trying to do at the moment, and what we published a Blue Health report this year, is about trying to unearth, what is that? What is that medicine that is coming at us when we get into the water? And actually, if we can not bottle it, but if we really understand the science behind that, then actually it becomes a really powerful prescription. The ability later to be able to, and it's already happening, but potentially later on a big scale, to be able to go, actually, let's, instead of taking that medication, actually, why don't you go and have some surf therapy, or why don't you spend some time in water, or spend some time in nature, and actually let's even moderate your medication levels. If you're depressed or anxious, or having got ADHD for kids or something like that, maybe it's some way of which, again, tapping into your own medicine chest, so that then you don't necessarily have to take strong medications that obviously got side effects and all the rest of it, and actually self-prescribe, so that then people can go, I'm having a bad day, I'm going to go surfing, or I'm having a bad day, I need to go for a swim, or I'm having a bad day, actually what I need to do, instead of watching some rubbish on TV or what have you, actually I'm going to go for a walk, I'm going to take the dog for a walk, I'm going to and start to tap into people's innate ability to be able to self-heal. That could be, that's gold dust to me, and it's something that I would want to share as much as possible.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think for me, one of the things I tend to notice with, going in the ocean and things like that, or, even, going in the water and things, is you do get a bit of a sense of perspective of truly how small we really are. I often, I think I put it on my story yesterday. I said, nothing humbles you like taking a few waves on the head, and it's, and not to kind of diminish or demean people's problems, because people do have problems and they have a lot to deal with and things. So not to make that seem smaller, but in a weird way, seeing the ocean, and, like we walked down to Thistral yesterday, and it's about 40 knots and, however many feet at 15 seconds and stuff. And you look at that and you're like, I really am pretty small in the grand scheme of things, aren't I? And I think that perspective, I think, whether it's subconscious or you realize, I think that tends to resonate with a lot of people as well. And you kind of sort of stop thinking, right, well, I've got to do whatever, I've got to somehow come up with the money to pay this, or whatever kind of problems you may be having. That kind of goes out the window, especially when you're in that water, because it's all you can focus on, isn't it? It demands all your attention all the time.
100%. I mean, it's something that I've talked about a lot this year, is about perspective, and how important it is, just in life at the moment, and everything that we're all sort of trying to get to terms with. but I think as well, and it's something, actually, it's something that I thought was slightly missing about the wave, is that perspective. What I really love is looking out, and you've got that sort of chilled out moment in between a set of a wave. You're waiting for the next wave or the next set of the wave, and you're looking out to the horizon, and you're just going, wow, it's so big, and it feels like anything's possible at that time. It feels like you've got like a blank canvas ahead of you. That's like, I don't know, that's all I can sort of describe it as at the moment. But it just feels like, it feels very, very clean, and like a really big wide open space, and you just don't feel hemmed in at all. And I was going, oh, okay, that's something that we can't really kind of reproduce at the wave. That's just how it is. But actually, what I've really noticed, and maybe when you come down soon, is actually we've got quite a long walk between the car park and the main clubhouse. It's about a 10 minutes walk, something like that. But it's really quite flat, and you've got a really, really, really amazing view right out across. You can see the bridges, you can see the Brecon Beacons in the background, and we've got massive skies. And I really realised that actually the walk home, particularly at sunset, it's that same thing. It's got that same feeling of, okay, anything is possible. It's like a really, beautiful, even on grey days, it's still such an expanse of space that it really feels like you've got a chance to reset, visually, and then also within your brain. And actually, I've really realized how special those walk homes are, because you've done that lovely thing of exercised and had a good vibe and all the rest of it, but then actually you've got a bit of time before you jump back into your car and get back to the busy world to just have that bit of perspective. It's great.
Definitely. Well, I mean, oftentimes actually your favorite kind of bits of a surf, or whatever you're doing in the sea, for me primarily windsurfing and things, but one of the best bits about it is kind of when you're all walking up the beach or still standing outside your car, and you're like you said, I'm not thinking about, oh, I've got to get back to work now, or I've got to go pick the kids up, or whatever you've got to do, you're still thinking, oh, did you see, oh, I got this wave, and oh, maybe I'll do that, and someone, oh, I saw that. But even if you're by yourself, you can take that moment. And like, I came out of the water this morning, like I was saying, and we're staying in the center of Newquay, and we were walking up the hill to the flat, and I'm kind of like, I feel clean, but not in because I've been under the water and I'm clean, but you do feel it's kind of mentally clean. You've just got kind of bit of cleansed. That's the perfect word for it. Yeah, you do. And I'm kind of like, and then and I feel that pretty much until after I've had a shower and sat down and opened my laptop, and then that maybe starts to go a little bit, but that's okay. You can't have that forever, but you do have that kind of after effect. But I guess because you don't necessarily have those vistas while you're in the water in the wave, but what you do have is your brain. You literally can't think about anything else, I guess, while you're surfing, because you've got that constant, right, and I'm on the wave right now, what do I want to do? But even then you're like, right, I've got to, I know you do like a queue system, so I'm sitting there, and then, oh, it's my turn, you're like, don't mess it up. And so I think that's really helpful, and I literally say this on every episode I do, but having something like that you can do for even a couple of hours a week is so valuable for your mental health. Something that you can devote completely your time to, not sit on your phone while watching Netflix, but your 100% of your attention is based on one thing for a few hours is so important.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. Completely.
I think that's it's kind of two sides, like you said, you've got that sort of polar opposite of suffocation, I like to call it. It's you're sitting out at sea and you're like, wow, this is mental, but then I think surfing affords you that. For me, surfing is kind of like a bit like stop start, isn't it? You know, you paddle and it's hectic, and and you've got to paddle back out, and then you might sit there for a few minutes and not much happens. And often, weirdly, they're my favorite bits of surfing, of when you're kind of
Yeah.
in there and you're like, oh, this is nice, and you might be with your mates and you chat and all this. But for me, windsurfing, it's not like that. You're all go all the time.
Going. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of, but it's still sort of two sides of the same coin. There's still something that you've got to devote all of your attention to. Even when you're sitting on your board out the back, you're still kind of looking at the horizon, and you're sort of looking back in, and have I drifted? And you know, and that's also. Sorry, you go.
I think I'm not sure. I remember talking to Eski about this. I'm pretty sure it was talking to Eski, but or somebody was talking around the spaces in between. So the sort of the franticness and the chaos of surfing, but then actually really enjoying the spaces in between. And I think you're absolutely right that actually those are the area, and except when maybe there's a really macking swell and you're there going, do I need to dodge some absolute killer bombs that are going to come through? But actually, if it's a relatively chilled out sort of session surfing, then those spaces in between are that's almost the gold, where you've hopefully got some satisfaction of having caught a wave just now, your satisfaction of getting back, and but then there's still that anticipation of what's going to happen next. And that space in between is just I really love it, and particularly if it's something that you're sharing with some friends, but actually sometimes I also love it when it's completely isolated by myself, but I think with friends, 2 or 3 friends, enjoying that space in between is golden, absolutely golden. I love it, absolutely love it.
Do you think that's, you mentioned, about your partner, she kind of goes and doesn't surf, but she still, does it. Do you think, I mean, this is potentially getting a bit kind of spiritual on it, but when there's that many people having that much fun, and all those people are in that kind of heightened state, whether it's even at the wave, I guess there is that space in between, isn't there, where you're sitting, you're kind of queuing up and waiting for your wave and things. So you think that kind of, I don't know, it almost like puts something in the air, doesn't it? When you go to a concert or something, and there's almost, you can feel like there's a vibe in the air. There's a, yeah. Do you think you kind of, is that potentially what it could be?
I personally, and I don't know how it works, and what level it works on, but definitely, you know when you walk into a house when it's got a happy vibe, you go into a house and you go, this feels like a great place, and then you go to other places and it feels a bit dark, a bit austere, maybe almost haunted or something, and I think, I really think that the amount of happiness and pleasure that is created in a place, it feels like it really can rub off on a real, like even down to the concrete. I really feel like it creates a happy space. Now, I've also, I need to research a lot more about it, but a friend of mine, Alex, who I met through Eski, I remember reading something. I think it was a German scientist who've actually found out that water can hold memories of good times, bad times, those kind of things. That the molecular structure of the water, the actual water molecules, changes under certain types of stress.
Right.
And I just really, I was transfixed, but not enough yet to research enough, about it yet. But if that's true, then that's pretty amazing. If water molecules itself can change shape and imprint some kind of memory, according to emotion that's put through it or stress that's put into it.
Mm-hmm.
That could be amazing to find out whether that's actually happened, because we have got a very defined body of water that is 99.9% filled with fun. There's probably a bit of fear and trepidation within there, or maybe nervous and excitement. But fundamentally, that's all very positive stress, because the outcome from that is, apart from maybe a couple of people that might have got bashed by their board or something like that, but they 99.9% of people, that will be a very positive effect. And I'm sure that creates a vibrancy within the water that then reflects just in people who don't necessarily surf. And we know so many people love going down, go for a walk down a pier, who maybe aged or maybe have got disabilities or something like that, but they still love getting out amongst that watery environment and feeding off the energy of it. There's something that draws people to that space, and that's instinctive as well. But I just still think that there's so much more research to be done about why they do that, because I think we all know that it's great, but it would be great to understand really what's happening in our bodies to create that. And there's some great research out there right now to prove exactly why that's happening, which is a really exciting body of science.
Definitely. I think there was a study done recently, wasn't there, about a kind of geographical study about communities that are kind of coastal communities generally have a much lesser rate of kind of depression and suicide and stuff compared to inland communities. And that was, I mean, I didn't read it and stuff, but I read something about a study that was done, and it basically said all these people are happier because they live by the sea. That was the general consensus. I mean, as I said, I grew up by the sea as well, and like your wife, my mum doesn't go in the sea at all. She doesn't, she'll maybe dip her toe in when she used to come out and visit me when I was working in Greece, and that was it, But she still says the same thing. She goes for a walk every day on the beach, and she's like, I don't know why, but she walks along the beach and looks for sea glass every day, and she picks up sea glass, and she's like, there's something about it, and you just hear the noise, or she says for her it's the sound. You close her eyes and hearing the sound, and it just soothes and calms, and it is so crazy that even though my mum, she's grown up around the sea, and me doing what I've done and with the water sports and all this, so she's very aware of all that going on, but she's not involved herself, yet she still feels that huge connection to it.
Yeah, exactly. And and I would extrapolate it right around to actually the effect of nature. I was quite lucky in a lot of my childhood to also spend a lot of time in the mountains over in Switzerland. And you go, right, well, in theory, therefore, anybody who lives in Switzerland is going to be massively depressed and terrible. But of course, they're not. They may be landlocked completely, but they have got the most amazing rivers, mountains, waterfalls. They've got the most stunning scenery, and they get out in it, a lot. And they're some of the most wonderful people that I've ever been lucky to spend time with. So there is this whole thing. We're very focused on the water side of it and the oceans, but the reality is it's nature, and we destroy nature at our peril, because we are 100%, that will be the demise of us without a doubt. It's unequivocal in my eyes that we have to protect it no matter what. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be ocean environments, but I think ocean environments just also creates the most amazing because you've also got, just so changeable from day to day, minute to minute, hour to hour, that it's such a dynamic environment, which I think is the thing that really creates, just really stirs people's, fundamental sort of emotions, really.
Yeah.
And I would be like you. I would be just as excited about going down to a beach which is beautiful and sunny and gorgeous, as to go somewhere where it's like, 20-30 foot waves and howling gale and all the rest of it. You go, right, as long as you've got good kit with you, let's get out there, because actually it's going to be different, but it's going to be still amazing. And that's so important. To get out into nature. That's the critical bit, really.
Definitely, like what you said about the Swiss and stuff. I know they do. I mean, I say a couple of Swiss sort of friends and stuff, but I know guys who go over to Switzerland and they windsurf on the lakes up in the mountains, and it's snowing, and they're out there, and then they're out skiing and stuff. And do you think that's potentially what kind of maybe holds the UK back a little bit? Because other than there's the whole football culture here, but there maybe isn't that whole doing all these kind of sports that are so connected to nature. That's not in our culture as much as other kind of Europe, even just European countries. Is there, like France? They're very well known for their skiing. I mean, I guess it's because they've got the Alps on their doorstep. But do you think that's potentially a factor with why we've kind of moved away from nature in terms of sports and that?
It's a good question. I haven't really thought about it massively, but all I can think about is how actually, if you look at the UK, and if you look at the amount of woodland, ancient woodland that's all been cut down. We've gone to a massively arable system. Previously, we've cut the countryside up. Hedgerowed it and create some amazing pasture land and all the rest of it. But it has created a massive destruction on normal wildlife or sort of native wildlife. And now, right now, if I wanted to go wandering through a wood, I've got to really think about the pocket of wood that I need to go to do that. Whereas there's so many places, just in the continent, that you just walk out and you can just get lost for months and months and months in it. Whereas now it's like pockets which are very well defined by either a parcel of land that's a farm now, or a conurbation or something like that. So it's an interesting thought around how the whole feudal system and parceling up the whole of the UK has possibly been at the demise of us actually being out there and really understanding it and using it in its proper form. At the moment, we're just planting a whole load of native trees to try and relink the corridors around the wave, because there's some ancient woodland on one side, ancient woodland on the other, and to try and get them to start merging again. And it was only when I started to look at the map of the old Forest of Avon, going, oh my goodness, it's like, that was huge. It was absolutely huge. And now I can see 1 square acre of woodland, trying to connect it about 30 square acres. And before, it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of square acres. So I think we've cultivated it massively. It feels like a very green island still, but actually it has been cultivated very, very heavily. And we're not even necessarily using a massive amount of our arable dairy side things anymore. So maybe it's something, and I'd love to see it happen, is let's get a whole load of the ancient woodland back. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm all for like rewilding. I think
Exactly.
I think it's only, as you said, only good can come from it.
Yeah, exactly.
To be
Exactly.
honest, as I said, like it's like I said, I grew up in the Highlands of Scotland, one of the most beautiful places in the world, and I still take my friends up there to this day. And my girlfriend, every time she comes up, every time she's like, I cannot believe this. You come into land in Inverness Airport, and it's just
Yeah.
it looks like you're landing in Middle Earth.
Yeah.
She literally can't believe it. So it makes me sad to think that when I have children, they won't see it look like that.
Yeah.
you know.
Exactly.
And it is a big fear, and it's scary. It's potentially me stepping out of my lane with it a little bit. I'm not necessarily as versed in all this stuff, but it is still something. All the sports I love doing require the natural world to be working.
100%. And there's funny. Even the last couple of days, I had a whole load of. We've got some school kids. They collected about 50, 60 acorns, and they've just been. They came for a surf, and they left the acorns. And I've just been starting to get our team, and we're going to get a whole load of customers and stuff to just plant them. Just plant some acorns, plant some conkers, bring along a conker, and let's start cultivating the area with proper native trees again. And in fact, we're quite lucky. 3 days ago, I think it was Thursday or Friday, Jordy Smith, who's a very, very good surfer. I think he was third in the world last year. And he had an amazing time. He went surfing and all the rest of it. But actually, he was just as happy about planting some acorn trees in our land. And it's like, oh, that's a really cool thing to do. We definitely have to do it. We definitely have to do it. So he planted some acorns. And again, if we can start to just change that dialogue and really allow people to understand the conflict between what we're creating very artificial, but actually start to use it as a tool for change, a tool to be able to go, right, maybe every single person who comes surfing here, we supply them, or ideally they bring some conkers or acorns in the planting season. Actually, that's pretty cool. It starts to create that connection. And most of them said, oh, that'd be great. Oh, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna come back and see if my conker tree starts to grow soon. And actually it just changes the dynamic a bit. And rather than being hungry just for waves and for surfing, you go, oh, but there's this other side to it, which I think is really important to engage and educate people in. But just fun, just not like real preachy. Just go on, just put a put an acorn in that. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah. Well, I think it's like you said. I think with these issues as well, it is so difficult to not be preachy, but that is such a great way of doing it. And it also gives people a bit of a personal connection to the wave as well, because they're not just going, oh, I had such a great time and I did this. They, like you said, they can come back, and even in 2 or 3 years' time, they come back and, oh, my tree's starting to grow. That's Jordy Smith's tree. It's cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's such a great way to kind of not just from a business point of view of, oh guys, come back and look at your tree. Like there is actually that kind of other element to it of we're doing something good and we're inviting you to do it with us.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. So just quickly, I know I've used far too much of your time up. You mentioned it would be all right. I know we spoke earlier in the year, and you mentioned that you'd unfortunately had a stroke, because we were going to record a bit earlier. I mean, how I've got another kind of great role model of mine, a windsurfer called Dave White. He was the world speed champion back in the 90s.
Dave White.
You know Dave White? Yeah, Whitey.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so I've known Whitey for quite a few years. He sponsored me a few years ago for a windsurf brand, and I used to do this thing called Speed Week with him out in Greece every year. And he's a real great guy. So I know he had a stroke a few years ago, and he's kind of still recovering and things. So Yeah, so I mean, what happened, and then how? I mean, you seem absolutely chipper now.
Yeah, no, I'm doing all right. I have good days and bad days, and today's
Right.
a good day, which is pretty good because yeah, the main thing that I lose is my ability to speak. So yesterday would have not been a great day for us to have had a podcast.
Okay.
But today's a good day. I haven't had too many meetings today, so I've saved a bit of my speech for later, which is good. But yeah, I'd had some weird symptoms, actually sort of uh, almost like frostbite in my legs when I was going surfing in November and December, and I was thinking, oh, that's quite weird. I've surfed in way colder water than this. I don't know why that's happening. And yeah, just suddenly wasn't feeling that great. And then I play hockey regularly, and I went to play a hockey game, and I suddenly started not be able to follow the ball at all. It was only a 1 minute at the beginning of the game, and then suddenly started to lose my grip on my right hand. I was starting to drop the hockey stick, and I was really freaking out actually by then, because I couldn't see the ball. Everyone was going, "Oh, why didn't you see? Why didn't you hit the ball?" I was like, "I didn't even see it. I don't know what's going on." And then I ran to the dugout, and then yeah, I just stopped speaking. And everybody was saying, "What's going on, Nick?" And I was just going, and I literally knew in my head what I was wanting to say,
Yeah.
and I couldn't get out of my mouth. It was so freaky. And long story short, I got to the hospital too late. The paramedics didn't come out quick enough. They didn't take me seriously enough, unfortunately, at A&E, because I was young. I wasn't displaying any classic signs apart from loss of speech. So I was delayed too long, and then this sort of clot busting drug that I should have been given after about 3 hours. Before 3 hours, it was about 5 hours, and unfortunately I had a big blood clot on my brain, and the clot busting drug sort of spread all of the clots all around my brain. So I had about 8 strokes in the end. And it was a living nightmare. It was just couldn't believe that it could happen to me. All of the cliched things that you would expect, and you would have probably heard from lots of other people. But I guess the long and short of it is that it created a huge amount of perspective in my life. That's why I was talking about perspective so much earlier, because suddenly I realized actually what matters to me, what matters in my life, allowed me to press a reset button. Again, a bit cliche, but it's possibly going to be the best thing that's ever happened to me. And yeah, without a doubt, I'm feeling better for it. I have bad days and good days, but ultimately I'm bloody lucky to be alive. I don't know, nobody knows why I've had it. So I do honestly every morning, again, cliche, wake up and going, bloody hell, I don't know if this is my last day on earth. So I'm just gonna seize the day, just go out there, just try to be positive, just try to be, influence good stuff that happens, try not to get wrapped up in the negative stuff that happens, and most of all, just try and focus on being the best I can for my kids, because family first. That's so hopefully it won't happen again, but you know what, I can't control that. So every day, yeah, treat it like it's your last.
I said on the last podcast I did with a guy called Ed, we were kind of talking about cliches and stuff, and we were like, they're cliches for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, they're cliches because they're really good to say.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
live every day like it's your last. Like, I think if we all did that, society as a whole would be far, far better, and everyone would be having a much nicer time, wouldn't they?
Exactly. And that's why I keep coming back to this perspective.
Yeah.
It's quite weird, because I had, basically 2-3 months of recovery, or starting the recovery, and then went straight into lockdown. And it was quite weird because the perspective that I had gained over that 2 to 3 months, suddenly it felt like the whole of society was going through that perspective and going,
Yeah.
oh, actually what matters, it's kind of making sure we're healthy and making sure that we're getting out and exercising and eating well, and it was quite interesting, because now actually then releasing this Blue Health Report actually is perfect timing, because people really understand now how important it is to get outside, be in nature, be in water, be in environments that make them healthy, rather than being stuck inside watching news programs when it's blazing hot outside, trying to wonder, when they're going to come out of lockdown. And I think we're really pushing on an open door now, in terms of why people can understand, and therefore be able to be at one, around nature and why it's important, and have a greater respect for it. And as soon as we get a better respect for something, we then start to protect it, which is so important.
Definitely. I think as well, like, not only has, like you said, it's opened a door on people realizing, exercise and all that. I think mentally, that's, in terms of mental health, that's been huge as well. People have realized, like, oh my God, if we actually are stuck indoors and everything's so uncertain and things, actually my brain's not having a very nice time. So
Yeah.
I need to find ways to be kind to myself,
Yeah,
And I think
exactly.
so many people have started to realize that. And I think I do feel like, because I started this podcast in December, so just before all this had happened. And since then, there's definitely been a huge uptick in people talking about mental health, studies about mental health, even, things like, the Wave and things suddenly posting about blue health and all this stuff. It has become part of the culture at the moment, is talking about mental health, which is an incredible thing.
Yeah, and even yesterday, listening to the radio, government health advisors, even Boris Johnson, going, look, we really want to avoid, a second proper lockdown, because of course there's going to be a huge mental health problems off the back of it. They're going, I mean, you would never guess, a year ago, that would be some of the rhetoric and some of the some of the reasons that you're actually making massive change, and making big decisions around, because of the health of the nation being being under attack through having another lockdown. And that's great, because even the politicians are understanding the damaging effect on lockdown, and not being outside in nature, exercising, and being sociable, and all those kind of things, alongside obviously the economic effect. So it's interesting that even those guys are really understand that there is a real, if you absolutely forget that at your peril, because that is again a massive health a health problem storing up for the future, and we need to keep the kids healthy, happy, interacting with each other. So yeah, as I say, we're pushing on an open door there, because obviously that, I think that's why we're so busy, is people are going, right, what can I do that is close to home and will fill me with joy?
Yeah,
Let's go surfing.
exactly. Well, I think people are looking for experiences rather than products at the moment, aren't they? And I certainly know that I've friends in the water sports industry, whether it's friends in surf shops or people who run experience kind of businesses as well. They've all said they're like, apparently for a while in the summer, you couldn't buy a wetsuit in the UK because there was none available.
Yeah, we got a real problem because we're trying to get a new stock of wetsuits for winter, and also we need some more surfboards and stuff like that. You just can't get hold of them. I mean, it's just crazy, which is great because, yeah, as you say, people are looking for an experience rather than just a commodity. They're just, they're looking for the thing that actually brings a lot more joy than just owning something, but actually the experience that is around it. And obviously we're from a commercial point of view, we're in the market of creating an experience and trying to make it as good and as fulfilling experience as possible, really.
Yeah, definitely. I listened to quite a lot of Joe Rogan, his podcast, and he mentioned in one episode he talked about one day he just sat and watched his dog, and he was like, "What does my dog do? Why is my dog so happy all the time?" And he put it down to a couple of things. He was like, "My dog, it gets up before it does anything, it stretches, it gets ready, and then it goes at whatever it's doing 100%, whether it's walking, eating, like going for a run, playing, whatever it does 100%, and then it stops, it stretches again, and then it lies down." And he was like, maybe we should all just be a little bit more like our dogs.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, and it's something that's really resonated with me recently, because I suffer with quite a bad back, and I'm like, right, I'm going to start taking stretching seriously. I'm 30 next year, so I'm like, right, I need to, I want to prolong my life of being able to enjoy sports in the water. So I'm like, right, I'm going to get up, I'm going to stretch, then I'll go and I'll try and just do everything. And like what we were saying earlier, I'll put all my focus into whatever I'm doing, whether it's working, making food, anything. And then when I stop, I try and really stop. So I try not to, I work in social media, so I try not to go on my phone or anything like that. I try and actually fully stop, and I do think there's something there. I really do think there's something there.
Really interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah. He just said, he's got this big golden retriever or whatever. And he was like, I just sat and watched it and observed a couple of things of how it lived. And it's funny how that's kind of resonated with me. Yeah. So I mean, we've already, spoken about it a little bit, but I mean, I guess where do you kind of see the wave in the next few years? Obviously it's, you've gone through, lockdown and all that stuff. Is there kind of be sort of more of a focus on, surfing therapy and getting people out, doing that sort of stuff?
Yeah, from our perspective, we've always, we set out to create a, what we call a triple bottom line business, a business that obviously needs to make profit because we've had to, borrow a huge amount of investment, or we've got investors that we need to be able to get a return back to, which is right and proper. But also we always set ourselves out to be as environmentally sustainable as possible, but also create as much social impact as possible through our day-to-day operations and any kind of projects that we get involved in. So, at the moment, really, it's been a really weird year because obviously we opened almost exactly a year ago today. I think it was just yesterday. And our really, really busy season's been completely, we were in lockdown, so we never had a very, very busy season, not yet. So we still got a lot to sort of work out, and still a lot of things that we need to work out ready for next year. But ultimately what we're wanting to do is obviously make sure that we're sustainable from a financial point of view, but start to initiate even more of our social impact agenda that we've always set out to do. We've also got a massive site that we're able to sculpt and make even better. We've also got some accommodation that's coming through next year, so which again will create a different kind of ambiance, a place where people, different community where people are staying over. Hopefully you can do things like film nights and talks and music nights, things like that, where it creates a different vibe and a different culture. And then ultimately, we've also been asked if we'll get on and start properly our London project. So we've got a project in London, north east London in Lee Valley, that we've got an amazing opportunity on some amazing land, and we want to bring that forwards. And I think long term, what I want to do is, and what we all want to do, is to replicate what we're doing at the Wave in Bristol, and replicate in a number of different opportunities, places where we can deliver that ethos and those objectives right across the board. I think surf parks are here to stay. I think that they'll get better, they'll get smarter, but my concern is that they'll be used maybe not to their full potential, not necessarily financially, but through social and the environmental impact that they could create. And I want to be right at the heart of that conversation, and I know that all of my team and the investors are right behind that. We're like, if we're going to build these, let's build them really responsible. Let's make sure that they're really sustainable, and make sure that they're a force for good, not something that is a bit of a flash in the pan, or something that just props up some retail outlet or residential scheme. Let's make sure that the values of surfing are embedded within these kind of communities that we can create. And yeah, that I really dig the thought of that. That really floats my boat.
Definitely. It's nice to think that there could be, in X amount of cities across the UK, there is that kind of hub in each one of those cities for, kids who are struggling, with home life, or they get to go along and surf once a week, or, adults, veterans. Say there's an amazing documentary on Netflix about US veterans that start surfing. Those Royal Legion people going surfing. It'd be amazing to have all these kind of things happening. And then of course the environmental side of it, of linking up all these forests across, would be awesome.
Yeah, I've kind of started to think about it almost like a lighthouse, like a little little lighthouses that jump up around cities, where it's a place where you can have an amazing experience, but it's a place where people can feel like there's a bit of a refuge, like a beacon that will make sure that they're okay when they've got stormy waters ahead of them. It's just an analogy that's been going through my head over the last couple of weeks, and I love the thought of that. It's something that I'd like to create. Yeah,
definitely. Well, it's it sounds brilliant. I can't wait to come down and see the first one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cool.
Right, Nick. Well, let's finish up there. I mean, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your insight into what you've built. And then I think if anyone wasn't sold initially, hopefully after listening to this, they definitely will be, because it sounds like what's going on down there is incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, thank you very, very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you do like what I am doing over here, you can like, share, subscribe, all the usual nonsense, and that very, very much helps me out. Nick, where can we find you and The Wave on social media?
It's just at The Wave, nice and simple, and I'm at Wavemaker Nick. So yeah, I'm on most social handles and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. I highly recommend you follow The Wave. As I said, if you weren't sold, you will be after that. But yeah, thank you guys. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we will see you for the next one.